and welcome back to Cooking with Dr. Tallman. We're going to do some more healthy cooking today. And one of the things that I eat probably more than anything else is salad. And salad is great because you can just include just about anything in it. All sorts of healthy vegetables, fruits, nuts, grains, beans, legumes, different types of protein, the protein that's in the vegetables, protein from tofu, protein from beans, nuts, grains. There's so many different sources of protein, and then you have all your wonderful complex carbohydrates, and you have some fats in there too with avocado, the good healthy fats from nuts and seeds. So there's just so many different things you can add to salads, and there's just a variety of flavors and textures, and then the flavors that you can add with the dressings, with things like lemon and lime and flavorings like vinegar, garlic, ginger, just so many great things that can be added to the dressings to put on it. And I really like to make my own dressings, just because then you know that you're not adding too much processed fat, too much sugar, because a lot of the commercially made dressings, they have a lot of fat in them. The ones that are low fat have a lot of sugar in them, and a little bit of fat, a little bit of sugar, I think is good. You can add the healthier processed fats like olive oil, that type of thing. Some maple syrup, maybe for some of the sweetener, might be a little bit healthier, agave nectar, things like that. But there's a lot of great things that you can do with salads, just an infinite number of combinations. So it's just a lot of fun to have salads, and a lot of variety, and they're great for every day of the week as far as I'm concerned. But you can eat lots of salads and have lots of healthy options and delicious options. So one thing I really like to add to my salads is tofu. And there's a lot of different ways of preparing tofu, of course. But one of the ways I like to make tofu for salads is to make crispy tofu. It's great for putting on top of the salad. It gives a nice texture and a little extra flavor to it. So I start out with the firm tofu, and you can press it first, which is something that's kind of nice to do with tofu. You don't have to do that, but we just take the tofu out, and you can put it between a dish towel and then put some books on top of it for weight, or you could get one of these fancy tofu presses like I have, and then you just loosen it up, slide the tofu in, and then you just tighten it down, and and you can give it some pressure, which presses some of the water out of tofu. Tofu comes with quite a bit of water in it. There are a lot of different varieties of tofu. You can get tofu silken, which is great for sauces and when you want something that's creamier. There are firm tofus, like this is a firm. There are even extra firm tofus that have much of the water removed, and you don't have to do any pressing. But I find those sometimes a little bit rubbery. I kind of like to use the firm tofu, press it a little bit, and you can see some water is coming out of this, which is what we want. We don't want to press it so much that the sides blow out of it, but we do want some of the water to come out of it. And once some of that water drains out of it, then we can cube up the tofu. And then to make it crispy tofu, what we're going to do is we're going to take a tablespoon of olive oil and a tablespoon of tamari. Tamari is a gluten-free soy sauce. This is the tamari that I have today. You can also use soy sauce instead of tamari, or Bragg's liquid aminos works as well. And then we just stir this up. And then once we cube up our tofu, we can take it out of the press. Or if you don't have a press and you're just putting it between some dish towels and some books or cast iron frying pan, something heavy on top of it, to press some of the water out. And then we can just cube up the tofu, and there's a variety of different ways of cubing it. You can do larger cubes, which I'm going to do here. We're just going to cut this in half. You could cut this in thirds to make smaller cubes, and then we'll just cut this up into cubes. And then we put the cubes in to our mixture of olive oil and tamari, or again, soy sauce, or Bragg's liquid aminos. And then we gently stir it up to try to get each of the pieces covered without breaking them up too much. With the firm tofu, it is a little more fragile, so you do get some crumbling and a little bit breaking up of the pieces. So you want to be a little bit gentle with them. But once they all have a little bit of the mixture on most of the sides of them, then what we do is we just sprinkle on about a tablespoon of arrowroot powder. And arrowroot powder is kind of like cornstarch, and just coat all of the pieces with the arrowroot powder. And what this will do when you put it in the oven is it will cause your pieces to get a little bit crispy, which is what we're looking for in combination with the oil, and then the tamari gives it some flavor. And so, and I take my pan, which I've lined with some parchment paper, and parchment paper is great. It just makes things so much easier to clean up. Things don't stick to it, and then they come off very easily, and the cleanup is easy. So I really like parchment paper. So then we just dump our tofu cubes that are a little broken up, but it's okay. This particular brand of tofu is a little more fragile than some others. Plus, I didn't press it for very long. Pressing it longer helps maintain the integrity a little bit, and it won't break up as so easily. Then what I'm doing now is I'm just spreading the tofu out so that the pieces aren't touching each other, because then it allows each of the pieces to crisp up better if they're not leaning against another one. And then I've preheated my oven to 400 degrees. I have mine on convection, so 400 degrees convection. And then we'll put it in the oven, and we'll go for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll check it. We'll flip them over, and then we'll run it a little bit longer depending on how crispy they're getting and how crispy we want them to get. So our tofu went for 15 minutes, and we're just going to take a look at it, and you can see it's starting to get nice and crispy. We're just going to turn them over a little bit. Spread them back out, and we're going to put them back in for about 10 more minutes. So now we're going to get our nice crispy tofu out. And you can see the nice brown, crispy texture on the outside of these pieces. And they have a real great flavor with the tamari and a real crispy outer shell. And these are great just for snacking now, but they're great for putting on top of things such as salads. So as I mentioned, I like to make my own salad dressing, and there's a lot of different ways of doing that and a lot of combinations that you can use. I use, for this salad dressing, kind of a variation on a Greek dressing. I use some apple cider vinegar, and I use a little bit of red wine vinegar, and then a little bit of olive oil. Just try to keep the processed fats to a minimum, but maybe a tablespoon of olive oil. And to counteract the acidity, it's nice to have a little bit of sweetness. You can use a little honey, you can use a little maple syrup, variety of different sweeteners. And then I like it to be a little thicker, so a lot of times I'll use tahini. This time I'm going to use some almond butter. And so we just put a good amount of almond butter in there. It's got good healthy fat and protein in almond butter. And then there's a lot of different seasonings that you can use. This being kind of a Greek dressing, I like this Cavender's Greek seasoning, and add a little bit of that. It has some salt in it, quite a bit of salt, so you want to be careful not to use too much. And then I just like to put it in a little sealed container and just shake it until it's all mixed together. And then we have our own salad dressing, and you know exactly what's in it. All right, and then the last step for making a salad is just assembling it after we've chopped up all of our vegetables that we're going to use. And my tip for that is don't cut your finger while you're doing it, because it's painful. Not advised, but we can use our, I start with some romaine lettuce that I've chopped up, and you can use a variety of different greens for your base. Then this is some chopped up power greens. The power greens are a combination of baby chard, baby kale, and baby spinach. Then I have a baby portobello mushroom and some onions. Onions are so good for you and add a lot of flavor. And then we have some asparagus, just some raw asparagus. You can, sometimes I'll roast the asparagus in the oven, or sometimes I'll steam it. Then we have some roasted sweet potato that I made the other night for some sushi that we had, and we had some leftover behind. And that's one of the nice things about salad too, is you can do a lot of your prep in advance, and you can kind of have your own salad bar in the refrigerator. You can just have containers like this that I happen to have some leftover rice, and we can put a little rice on. And you just have containers like this full of all of your chopped up ingredients. Of course, tomatoes aren't the best to store in the refrigerator. You're not supposed to do that because they do lose their flavor when stored in the refrigerator. So those you can chop up fresh. Cucumbers, I usually will chop those up fresh. But things like carrots, I'll just keep a container of already peeled and shredded carrots in the refrigerator. I like pepperoncinis. I think they add a lot of flavor, so I put a lot of pepperoncinis on my salad. A few Kalamata olives are really good, especially since this is kind of a Greek-themed salad. The Kalamata olives go with that. And then garbanzo beans for all the good fiber and protein and nutrients that are in garbanzo beans. And then I like to top it with something crunchy. And these are fennel seeds. I like the flavor of fennel seeds. They add a little bit of, I think of it as kind of a licorice flavor. I don't know if everybody would agree with me on that, but, and then these are some chia seeds. I like to sprinkle some chia seeds over the top. A lot of nutritional benefits of chia seeds. And then my favorite is pumpkin seeds. So these are roasted pumpkin seeds, and those are really delicious. And then my dressing, give it one more good shake, because it does tend to separate being homemade. And then we just make the dressing all over the top of that. And then the tofu that we made earlier, we can put some pieces of tofu on top, and now we have our salad. And there's just so many wonderful, nutritious things in this salad, and it's just so delicious. I just can't wait to eat this. I hope you enjoy, and hope you get to making your own salads. It's just a matter of chopping up whatever you have, putting it together, making a dressing that you like, and eat it up and enjoy.